G'day guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Justin. In today's upload, I'm going to be reacting to my old reef tanks that I've kept over the last 10 years. So come along for the journey as we see how far we've come. All right, so this was my first ever, I guess, legitimate saltwater reef tank. As you guys can tell, this is sort of when I was setting it up, and you know, I had the canister filter and just an internal filter, and this is how it looked a couple weeks later. I had an inbuilt skimmer, which looks crazy, and yeah, just sort of like a head and hands type reef tank. It didn't last that long. That was the first RAS I ever had. It was just a standard glass aquarium that I just honestly filled up with salt water, and sort of gave it my first crack. I think it was about 2015 or so, 2014. And yeah, I had a couple soft corals and I ended up with a chromium. So it didn't really last long. But as you can see, that was all real live rock that I purchased. And this is my second reef tank, which was an Aqua One Mini Reef 120. My first tank with a external sump. Pretty still a staple tank that's available in the Australian market. And still a lot of people will buy this tank as a first. And you can see some of the corals. At this point, guys, I had no idea what I was sort of getting myself into in regard to all the corals I had besides the green star polyps. So I didn't know what they were, and the mushrooms, of course. I knew what the mushrooms were, but yeah, shit. And a massive maroon clown that I got, which didn't really last long. So yeah, that was a bit of a ride with this one. I had this one for about 6 months or so before I decided to shut it down. So yeah, I think it was about 120 litres, this reef tank. But that chalice coral there that I can see is actually quite nice. Yeah. Oh, here's a Red Sea Reefer 350. This was my, I guess, first big boy sort of reef tank. This was a fun one. This was a really fun one. This was the start of COVID, I believe. So it was 2020, I want to say. So there was so much of free time. So much so, probably too much free time. I think that's why I started messing around with the tank too much, because I was home for most of it, really. I just got out of a job, I think, at the time, and yeah, it was just at home, really. And yeah, fox face, the one and only fox face I've ever had. Didn't die, sold it off when I changed the tank up. Absolutely great fish. And a hawkfish I had, would never buy that fish again. Crazy unit. And yeah, I was pretty happy with this scape, to be honest. I think it came together quite nicely. You can see that green hammer coral that I had. This size, I think this size for an aquarium is a perfect starting point for a reef tank, because I think if you go a bit smaller than this, then you run out of space quite quick. But yeah, this is sort of after having the tank for quite a fair few months, and as you can see, everything has sort of grown in regards to algae. The tank sort of stabilised. Yeah, that sailfin I had was really nice, and that wrasse as well. It was a type of fairy wrasse. I got it off as a blue fairy wrasse, and then it changed colour, so it must have turned into a male or something. But yeah, you can see all those green anemones I had, which turned out to be apparently pest anemones, but didn't really know that when I bought it. And that blenny I had was really cool. You can see that really big bleached senior, and that's a massive recordia that I had. Not sure what's going on with that angle there. What's the next one? Oh, the Fluval Evo. So I shut down that Red Sea Reefer for a little bit, and I think that's the time it was freshwater. If you've followed my channel, I changed it to freshwater. But yeah, this is a little Fluval Evo. I think I picked up on the cheap, and yeah, I just had some small soft corals. This was sort of getting back into the hobby again after sort of just constant shutdowns on the Red Sea Reef. I was just sort of over it. And yeah, this is how it looked 2 months later. I just sort of left it, really. It honestly just did its thing, and you can see I started with a couple strands of macroalgae and with barely touching the tank. You guys will see, I think, in the next shot. Yeah, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Look at that. Oh dear. This is what will happen if you leave your reef tank with macroalgae. It will just spread, cover everything. Oh, I know where this one's going. So this one was probably my favourite setup that I had. You can see how clean the rockwork is in terms of the scape. And yeah, look at that. Filled to the brim with corals. I missed those tangs there. That was my blue and purple tang that I had from Fairly Small. Yeah, that little Recordia Island, 2 cleaner shrimp. What a tank. What a tank. Not trying to toot my horn here, but I think this was probably, this is probably the best place I had my sort of reef tank in. I think just the maintenance schedule I had and with the type of corals I had was just like, yeah, look at those scollies, stunning. Everything's happy, fluffy. This was sort of the period, if you watched my last video, when we had an earthquake in Melbourne and I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep my Red Sea tank and I was considering upgrading. And I made the stupid decision of cashing in on all these corals, if you will, cashing in, not cashing in, but just selling them. There were some really nice specimens in there. You can see that Scully Island, absolutely ridiculous. I reckon I did really well then. You can see the sump, it's growing macroalgae, which was nice. I do miss this tank, to be honest. This one, honestly, I don't even want to talk about this one. This was a 5-foot tank I bought almost on a whim. All my tanks have been, not all of them, but a lot of them have been like I haven't thought through the process that well with a lot of them. This was a 5 by 2 by 2.5 foot fish tank that I had. It was probably like 200 gallons or something. I had a bit set up for barely a month, to be honest, guys. It was running 2 canister filters, one on each end, an Oase and I think it was an Eheim canister. The Oase was pretty cool, but yeah, fuck it. Another one of those ones where, you know, I bought this tank and I should have looked at the seal, and I don't think you'll see it in these clips. Oh, no, you can't really see it. One of the seals, the silicon job on one of the sides was so botchy, and I was just like, fuck, this is probably gonna bust at some point. So, not the final reason why I sold it, but it was one of them. So you can see I just got unlucky with my last 2 tanks. And this is the Cade, so the last tank I had before my current reef tank. So you can see absolute ripper of a tank. This was probably not the largest in terms of size, but probably it was the same water volume as my 5-foot because of the sump and the extra width. But yeah, what a ripper of a tank. Had that back reservoir compartment for your auto top off, so the RO water. This was a Cade Pro Reef S2 1200, I believe. And it came with everything you see by the lights, so it came with the net and stuff. And this was a 120 gallon reef tank. So I had this tank for I think about 2 years, not set up for the whole time though. I purchased it in Jan 22, so the footage you're seeing is readily available on my channel, and that's the side compartment. But yeah, I had this tank set up for I want to say probably about a year, and then it was shut down for probably about 6 months with me trying to move it on. And yeah, really awesome reef tank. You can see with the sump and everything, like everything was all inclusive. And this is not an Australian made tank, but an Australian company, Cade is, so was more than happy to support them. Absolute rip of a tank. You can see the manifold it came with as well. And this is how the tank looked a couple weeks probably after being set up. I had a lot of my corals in a holding tank that I didn't include, I guess, in this reaction, because it was just at a holding tank. But yeah, so I filled it up quite quickly, and I think that's probably where I sort of went wrong with this tank. Like I really didn't take my time with it, and I think, you know, with the water box, I've sort of, and I'm looking at when I'm looking up the side, I'm looking at the water box now that I currently have. I really took my time with buying, you know, the corals that I really like, and sort of having a plan with it. So I think that was one of the sort of downfalls of this Cade that I had. I just went too sort of ham because I had all this extra space, and you can see that these recordiers here, guys. There was a gold one off screen as well. I walked into a shop one day, dropped like $1,000 on Ricks, and like, just went crazy. But yeah, the skate was also pretty cool. Like I did that rock on the side and all the other ones, and this was probably, I want to say 5 months after that previous shot you just saw. So obviously looks absolutely cooked. I changed my mind again, of course, with that massive bommy. I pulled it apart, and yeah, I think the tank went downhill from there. It probably released a lot of chemicals and stuff. I think that was probably bound to the rock. And yeah, the tank went downhill really fast. I don't know what happened in terms of fish, because I started losing fish quite quickly out of nowhere. Like it started, I think, with one of my tangs, then I lost the dotty back, I lost half of my damsels, I lost both my clowns, my mandarin, my tamini that you can see on screen, beautiful tamini tang. Yeah, I've got no, I guess it was probably neglect and maybe something with the oxygen levels. So yeah, that's sort of where it left off in terms of my reef tank journey. Full disclosure, I did have one reef tank, which I didn't include because unfortunately I didn't have any footage of it. It was my first ever reef tank. I think it was in late 2014, which I purchased it. I had it for about a year. It was a 30 litre, 35 litre ocean-free nano reef tank. So that's sort of where I dipped my toes in the water, and it was a shocking tank. Obviously, it was my first reef tank. I believe I was topping it up with salt water in terms of RO, so that will tell you guys everything you need to know. I did have 2 clownfish though, and they did survive the whole thing, so that's a testament to how hardy they truly are. I have no idea what the salt level, any level, was in that tank, but yeah, those were all my reef tanks. I hope you guys enjoyed this reaction video. I guess I was giving you a sort of a little walkthrough into the journey. I feel like I've come a pretty long way in terms of all the reef tanks, and I feel like I've learned a lot. I think I still got a ways to go in terms of understanding the chemical side of keeping reef tanks, and not that it bores me as such, but I think that's the sort of more tedious side that I guess maybe does bore me, to be honest. So, but very important to the hobby. But yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you made it this far, I do wholly appreciate it. And please subscribe if you haven't already. It really means a lot to me. We're trying to get to 1,000 subs before the end of the year. I reckon we can do it. But yeah, thanks again for watching. Hope you guys have a great weekend. And as always, happy reefing.